This year is a very special year. It's been 7 years since Star Wars was last in theaters, 7 long years during which the franchise has still continued to live on through many projects, especially on Disney+. The lore of Star Wars alone is enough to make your head spin, not to mention the books and comics. Since Disney acquired the franchise, there's been an avalanche of stories from that galaxy far, far away. But we have to admit something, the franchise has lost some of its former glory, and that's coming from an absolute fan of this universe. And I think one of the most important reasons for this loss of interest is the complexity of the timeline. Before, it was simple. We had the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and the sequel trilogy. 3 trilogies that aren't so hard to piece together, but today I challenge you to know exactly when Skeleton Crew takes place, or even the latest ongoing series, Maul Shadowlord. Well, that's the challenge I'm setting for myself today, trying to put everything back in order, and not just by project order, but as you've seen with my timelines, by order of events. Alright, clearly I'm going to make sure this all fits into a single video, so hang on, because we're entering the spoiler zone, the most dangerous zone in the Outer Rim. You're with Kevin Buckott, your favorite Rebels favorite theorist. Intro. This month of May is the ultimate Star Wars month. First, because May 4th is International Star Wars Day, since in English it's May the 4th be with you. Yes, you got it. May the Force be with you. As I mentioned earlier, it's also Star Wars returning to theaters. As you know, on May 20th in France, The Mandalorian and Grogu, the movie based on the hit Disney Plus series The Mandalorian, is coming out. The dawn of time, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. That's how every Star Wars movie begins. But here, we're going to start much further back than you can imagine. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, long before the Battle of Yavin. Yes, in Star Wars, Jesus Christ never appeared to give us the starting point for our Gregorian calendar, so they had to base it on something else. The starting point is the Battle of Yavin. It's simply the battle at the end of the very first Star Wars from 1977. The day when, in the orbit of Yavin 4, young Luke Skywalker managed to destroy the first Death Star, causing the first major defeat of Darth Sidious's empire. There you go, you have the basics, we can get started. So hundreds of thousands of years ago, a galaxy formed in the cosmos. With this cosmos, a mystical power called the Force is born. With its appearance, 3 beings with immense powers are also born. The Father, the Son, and the Daughter. Each represents an aspect of the Force. The Son, the dark side. The Daughter, the light side. The Father balance on a world outside of time and space called Mortis. Thousands of years later, life forms appear on the planets of this galaxy. One of them sees many cities rising and shining brightly. Some believe it could be humanity's original planet. With the development of galactic travel, humans mingle with other civilizations in the galaxy, and everything speeds up because around 30,000 years before Yavin explorers discover the Purrgil, giant space whales with the ability to travel at the speed of light across the galaxy. By studying them, hyperdrive technology is developed and ships are now able to explore the most remote corners of the galaxy. 25,000 years before Yavin, what appears to be the first Jedi creates the Jedi Order on the planet Ahch-To. These are beings capable of sensing and manipulating the Force. They then decide to devote themselves to the light side and build temples on their homeworld. With the development of hyperspace guided by the Force, a Jedi discovers the planet Ilum, a planet covered with a Force-sensitive mineral, the Kyber crystal. It becomes the central element of a new iconic weapon of the Jedi Order, the lightsaber. 20,000 years before Yavin, 22 planets form an alliance to help each other and prosper. Over the millennia, this alliance grows more and more, welcoming hundreds of systems. This is the very beginning of the era of the Old Republic. The Jedi also become more and more influential over the millennia, creating more and more temples throughout the galaxy. On Jeddah, they build the Kyber Temple, a world destined to become the sacred center of several Force-related religions until a rebellious Jedi seeks greater power from the Force. He then discovers the power of the dark side and decides to separate from the Jedi Order, which denies this corruptible aspect of the Force. He takes a few followers with him, and together they form the Sith Order. This sparks a large-scale conflict between the two orders, known as the 100-Year Darkness. It is during this war that the Great Disaster of Malachor takes place. An ancient Sith superweapon powered by a giant Kyber crystal is activated and petrifies all the fighters in an instant. This is also where one of the Sith holocrons is located, and Ezra Bridger will find it millennia later. At the same time, the Jedi Order finds itself confronted by the warrior civilization of the Mandalorians. Fearing the Jedi and their power, the Mandalorians then develop weapons and military technology to fight their opponents. This triggers the Mandalorian Wars. But the final battle leads Mandalore to be devastated by bombardments, making all life on the surface impossible. The survivors have since lived in domed cities. Millennia later, the Jedi accept the first Mandalorian into the Jedi Order, Tarevizla. With his people's technology, he then creates a unique lightsaber, the Darksaber. It was only after his death that other Mandalorians infiltrated the Jedi Order to retrieve it and use it as a symbol of their people's strength. At the same time, the war against the Sith ends on Coruscant after 4,000 years of conflict. While the Jedi believe the Order is finally extinct, Darth Bane is the only survivor. He realizes that if the Sith failed, it's because each of them was fighting for more and more power, each on their own. To rebuild the Order, he then establishes the rule of two. From now on, each Sith must have an apprentice. And in the shadows, he patiently rebuilds the Order and decides on a more insidious approach, infiltrating the politics of worlds to be reborn not by force, but by cunning. It is here, after this war, that the Galactic Republic is officially born, making Coruscant its capital. 4 Jedi Masters then decide to build a great temple there. Jedi at the top of the old Sith Sanctuary. It now becomes the Jedi headquarters, which will strengthen the relationship between the Republic and the Order. This marks the beginning of the High Republic. During this period, the Jedi become true knights and travel across the galaxy to spread peace, creating their legend through heroic deeds. Many books and comics cover these missions and adventures, but here we'll focus on the movies and series, which have often overlooked this period. The only one that even touched on it? And of course, the Acolytes. 148 years before the Battle of Yavin, a group of Jedi investigates the assassination of several Jedi Masters. The investigation then reveals a buried secret. On Brendok, the tragedy of a clan of witches that was decimated because of the Jedi, especially because of 2 twins born through the Force. And one of the investigators is none other than one of the Jedi who took part in that mission, Master Saul. He is the one who killed the twins' mother and is responsible for the destruction of the clan. No small thing. Overcome with remorse, he took one of the twins as his Padawan. However, he didn't know that the other twin had survived and she became Kimia's acolyte. A Sith about whom we won't know much since the series was cancelled. But basically, the Padawan to Saul becomes Kimia's new acolyte and the story is covered up, leaving the Sith Order hidden from the Jedi Council. In short, to be honest, we don't learn much about the High Republic in this series, which is a huge waste. But this is where the great saga as we know it truly begins. The Fall of the Jedi. The golden age of the High Republic comes to an end. In 85, BBY Yoda, one of the most respected Jedi Masters, takes on a new Padawan named Dooku. Once he becomes a Jedi Knight, Dooku in turn takes on a Padawan, Qui-Gon Jinn. Together, they study the mystical prophecies of the ancient Jedi. It is during a mission to rescue the kidnapped son of a senator that Dooku goes astray for the first time. When he learns that the senator is actually a tyrant, he is about to kill him before being stopped by his Padawan. At the same time, in 52, a Sith apprentice, Darth Sidious, kills his master Darth Plagueis in his sleep. Sidious is actually the senator of Naboo, Sheev Palpatine. Following the doctrine established centuries earlier by Darth Bane, he seeks to gain power by hiding his true identity and through political means. In 44, Qui-Gon becomes a Jedi Knight and takes Obi-Wan Kenobi as his Padawan. Mace, Windu, and Dooku, once very close, are sent to recover a murdered Jedi Master's body. Dooku disobeys the council once again and conducts his own investigation. Once again, he discovers that the senator of this world is corrupt and takes advantage of the people of his planet. He then finds the Jedi's assassins, but once again understands their fight against corruption. That's how he loses his promised seat on the Jedi Council to Windu, so he decides to leave the Jedi Order and returns to his homeworld. He takes his family's title, becoming a count and one of the richest men in the galaxy. He is then approached by Darth Sidious, who offers to train him in the dark side to continue his fight against the corruption of the Republic. At the same time, on Tatooine, a fatherless child is born, Anakin Skywalker. We later learn he was born from the Force itself. No, I won't mention midichlorians. On the other side, a civil war breaks out when Duchess Satine Kryze tries to steer her people toward pacifism. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are assigned to protect her from a group called the Death Watch. During this time, Obi-Wan and Satine develop feelings for each other, but their relationship ends after the war. While he receives an offer to become a member of the Council, Qui-Gon has a vision that validates the prophecies he studied with Dooku. He then refuses the offer and stays with his Padawan, Obi-Wan. Darth Sidious meets Mother Talzin on the planet Dathomir, the planet where the Night Sisters live. He offers to train her son Maul as a Sith apprentice. In 33, at the age of 3, little Ahsoka Tano is discovered by Jedi Master Plo Koon, who takes her to the Jedi Temple. Another Jedi Master, Sifo Dyas, in secret, a mentor of Mace Windu, has a vision of galactic war, but the Jedi Council refuses to listen to him and completely excludes him from the Council. He then goes to Kamino, home to a race of cloners, to order an army for the Republic. However, the template for these clones is a bounty hunter well known to the Sith, especially to Dooku, Jango Fett. Dooku then has his Jedi friend eliminated and takes control of this army in production. Jango only asks in return for his genetic code that he be given an unaltered clone, whom he will raise as his own son, Boba Fett. The Kaminoans will create another similar clone named Omega. It is here that Darth Sidious secretly orchestrates the blockade of his own planet, Naboo, by the Trade Federation, and of course, this is where Episode 1 begins. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are then sent to save Queen Padme Amidala. During their escape, they are forced to hide on the planet Tatooine, where they meet the young Anakin Skywalker. Seeing in him the chosen one of the prophecy, Qui-Gon frees him and brings him to the Jedi Council to make him his Padawan. As the Galactic Senate fails to resolve the conflict between Naboo and the Trade Federation diplomatically, the young Queen Amidala calls for a vote to remove the current Supreme Chancellor and succeeds in having Palpatine elected as the head of the Galactic Republic Senate. Dooku then takes advantage of this victory to have the planet Kamino erased from the Jedi Temple records in order to keep the clone army secret. Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Padme, and Anakin then return to Naboo to break the blockade by force. Padme manages to unite her people and the Gungans to fight their oppressors. Darth Sidious sends his apprentice to challenge the Jedi, revealing the Sith's return after centuries of absence. He kills Qui-Gon, but is cut in half by Obi-Wan, who then takes Anakin as his Padawan. Dooku learns that his former Padawan was also killed by Maul. They confront Sidious, but the Jedi Master Yaddle, yes, the female Yoda we've seen a couple of times, offers Dooku the chance to return to the light side. He refuses and kills her. He then becomes Sidious's new apprentice, Darth Tyrannus. Amidala is no longer queen and becomes the representative of the Naboo people in the Senate. Meanwhile, Count Dooku creates the Confederacy of Independent Systems. This is where the Separatist crisis begins. Hundreds of systems break away from the Galactic Republic, starting the Great War. We then begin Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. While Dooku sends Jango Fett to assassinate Padme, Anakin and Obi-Wan manage to stop this attack. However, Anakin has visions of his mother in danger. He travels to Tatooine and she dies in his arms. Succumbing to his rage, he massacres her tormentors. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan follows Jango's trail to Kamino, where he discovers the clone army. As the Senate fears an escalation in the Separatist conflict, it grants full powers to Chancellor Palpatine, who immediately activates this army, launching the conflict on a large scale. The Jedi then take command of the clone army and spread out across the galaxy to the various war zones. On Geonosis, Dooku comes up against his former master Yoda. Mace Windu decapitates Jango Fett in front of his son, and Anakin and Padme secretly marry against the rules of the Order. During the war, the Separatist cyborg general Grievous takes control of the droid armies. He wreaks havoc across the galaxy, especially against the Jedi whose lightsabers he collects. Several Padawans are promoted to Jedi Knights to lead the clone squadrons, and Anakin and Obi-Wan will be key figures in this war. During their investigations, they discover that a third party could benefit from this war, and it's during this same investigation that they face a new Sith apprentice of Dooku, a Night Sister Asajj Ventress. Anakin quickly becomes the general of the 501st Clone Legion alongside Captain Rex, and Ahsoka Tano becomes his new Padawan. Their first mission is to rescue Jabba the Hutt's son, Rota, a key character in the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu film. Meanwhile, Padme tries everything to find a diplomatic end to the Clone Wars. At the same time, a group of genetically enhanced clones, Clone Force 99, also known as the Bad Batch, enters the war and is deployed on special missions against the Separatists. To prove his loyalty, Sidious asks Dooku to assassinate his apprentice Ventress. She survives and becomes a bounty hunter alongside Boba Fett. Dooku later sends Grievous to massacre the Night Sisters of Dathomir. Mother Talzin escapes thanks to her magic, but most of the sisters are killed. One of the only survivors, Morgan Elsbeth, then studies magic in an attempt to revive her people. We will see her again, notably in the series The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. Mother Talzin then uses her magic to send a Night Brother to take revenge on Dooku. He fails but finds a Maul who is mentally and physically broken on the junk planet, Lothal Minor. Mother Talzin manages to restore his body and mind. He then blames Obi-Wan for all the suffering he has endured, but will once again be defeated by the Jedi. They are saved by Pre Vizsla, the leader of the Mandalorian Death Watch. Together, they form a crime syndicate and capture Duchess Satine, placing Mandalore under the control of the Death Watch. Maul eventually kills Vizsla to reclaim the Darksaber and takes power over Mandalore. Bo-Katan, a follower of Vizsla, calls Obi-Wan for help. As he comes to save Satine, Maul kills her in front of him for revenge. Darth Sidious then learns of his former apprentice's survival and travels to Mandalore to capture him. But he will be freed by his Mandalorian followers. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka are brought to Mortis to meet the entity known as the Father, who is looking for a chosen one to take his place and oversee the balance between the dark side of the son and the light side of the daughter. Anakin proves that he is strong enough against these three powerful beings, but together they decide to destroy themselves, sending the Jedi back home. On Coruscant, Ahsoka is accused of terrorism against the Jedi Temple and is expelled from the Jedi Order. Anakin manages to prove his Padawan's innocence and the Council offers her the chance to rejoin the Order, which she refuses. Anakin once again sees his faith in the Order shaken. Through an appearance by Qui-Gon, Yoda manages to preserve his consciousness through the Force after death. The bounty hunter Cad Bane becomes Boba Fett's mentor to make him the best bounty hunter in the galaxy. On Mandalore, Maul creates a new crime syndicate. Bo-Katan asks once again for the Jedi's help to remove Maul from power. Ahsoka and the clones of the 500 first attack Mandalore and manage to capture Maul. The planet falls under Republic occupation. Obi-Wan and Anakin return to Coruscant and find the planet under siege. Palpatine is captured by Dooku and Anakin saves him by killing Dooku at the Chancellor's urging. This is where Episode 3 begins, Revenge of the Sith. For his part, Obi-Wan manages to defeat General Grievous, leaving the Confederacy of Independent Systems without leadership. Padme is pregnant and Anakin starts having visions of her death. Desperate, he seeks advice from Palpatine. Palpatine reveals to him that he is a Sith and that his former master found a way to conquer death. To save Padme, Anakin joins Palpatine, kills Mace Windu, who had figured out the deception, and becomes Sidious's new apprentice under the name Darth Vader. Order 66 is then initiated. All of the clones turn against their Jedi commanders. Almost all of them perish. Anakin leads the attack on the Jedi Temple, massacring all the remaining Jedi, including young Padawans. But a young girl named Reva manages to survive and becomes the third sister under his command. A Jedi Master also manages to save a young apprentice you know well, Grogu. The Order doesn't work on the genetically modified Bad Batch, who managed to save the Padawan Caleb Dume, whom we'll see again in the series Star Wars Rebels. The Jedi Jaro Tapal also sacrifices himself to save his Padawan Cal Kestis, the hero of the game Jedi Fallen Order. The Bad Batch then returns to Kamino and meets the clone Omega. Refusing to blindly follow the orders of the newly formed Empire, he escapes with the girl and the Kaminoans send bounty hunters after them. During her return to Coruscant, Ahsoka is attacked by the clones, whom she manages to get rid of. Maul once again escapes. Obi-Wan and Yoda also manage to escape from the clones and discover that Anakin has betrayed them. Darth Vader is sent to Mustafar to eliminate all the remaining leaders of the Confederacy. The Clone Wars is officially over. Palpatine transforms the Republic into the Galactic Empire to the applause of the Senate. As Padme travels to Mustafar to confront her husband, Obi-Wan's presence is seen as a betrayal by Anakin, who lashes out at her. This is followed by the legendary duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin, leaving Darth Vader in a bad state. Yoda faces Darth Sidious but fails to defeat him and goes into exile. The birth of twins, Luke and Leia. Leia is adopted by Bail Organa, while Obi-Wan takes Luke to his uncle on Tatooine. Sidious tells Vader, trapped in armor essential for his survival, that his wife and child are dead. This is where the era of the Empire begins. Darth Bane's centuries-old plan succeeds. The Sith have taken revenge and destroyed the Jedi. The Galactic Empire. The rise of the Empire is above all political. The Sith have no intention of revealing their plan. Darth Vader is then kept secret by Palpatine, who turns the former Jedi Temple on Coruscant into his new Imperial Palace. In 19 BBY, Vader takes command of the Empire's Inquisitors. These are former disillusioned Jedi whose mission is to hunt down and kill all Jedi who survived Order 66. The Grand Inquisitor then discovers Reva, whose dream is to take revenge on Anakin. She becomes the third sister in the Obi-Wan series. After escaping from Ahsoka, Maul tries to rebuild himself once again. He takes over the Crimson Dawn organization. It is in his ongoing series that we see him once again trying to train a new apprentice while attempting to escape the Emperor's Inquisitors who are trying to eliminate him. This series serves as a bridge, if it was really necessary, between his defeat at the end of the Clone Wars and his position as a crime boss in Solo. The Bad Batch, meanwhile, will come to the aid of some of the first people to fall victim to the new Empire, notably on Ryloth, where they save Cham Syndulla at the request of his daughter Hera, an important character for what's to come, the Ahsoka series. The Empire then begins its major transition from an army of clones to a TK army made up of conscripts and volunteers. Kamino is then destroyed by the Empire, and Palpatine blames the clones for this destruction, which allows him to officially and politically replace them without any trouble. But the knowledge of cloning is essential to Palpatine. One of the Kaminoan scientists is sent to a new facility to work on a secret project. Experiments on Force-sensitive blood, Project Necromancer. To create a body capable of hosting Palpatine's spirit to give him eternal life. Numerous experiments are conducted there on young Force-sensitive apprentices, and we learn that Omega is essential to this project. The Bad Batch and Omega then free the imprisoned children and destroy the base before retiring to Pabu. Ahsoka, who is hiding on the planet Rada, is found by an Inquisitor. She manages to defeat him and purifies her lightsabers to make them white. She later joins Bail Organa to resume the fight against the Empire. Cal Kestis, a survivor of Order 66, is hiding on Bracca, a scrapyard planet. He is forced to use his powers to save his friend and is found by the Inquisitor, the second sister. He is saved by Seri Junda, and together they set out to find a holocron that contains a list of Force-sensitive children. Cal finds it and destroys it to protect these children. The second sister is killed by Vader for her failure. Meanwhile, the Emperor lets him choose any world to settle on. Vader chooses Mustafar, a place highly symbolic in his story, and then builds his fortress there. On Geonosis, the Empire continues the construction of its superweapon, the Death Star. A brilliant scientist specialized in kyber crystals, Galen Erso, is manipulated into creating the super laser for the weapon. But when he discovers what he is working on, he tries to go into exile with his family in the Outer Rim, with the help of Saw Gerrera, a violent leader of the new rebellion against the Empire. But the Empire finds him and he is forced to return to work on the project, where he will implant a flaw to destroy the weapon at the right moment. His wife is killed and his daughter Jin is taken in by Saw. On Corellia, a young orphan named Han tries to survive. He falls in love with a certain Chira, who is captured by Crimson Dawn, Maul's criminal syndicate. Han joins the Imperial Academy to leave his homeworld, but after 3 years serving the Empire, he meets Chewbacca. And together they escape and go to work for Crimson Dawn on a mission that will fail. Han then suggests an even bigger heist to make up for it, and they set off with Kira, Lando, and the Millennium Falcon to complete this mission. It's a ship he will win from Lando in a game of Sabacc. However, they will never return to Crimson Dawn, marking the beginning of their troubles. On the ancient Sith world of Exegol, Palpatine continues his Project Necromancer. The Death Star itself is moved from Geonosis to Scarif, and the Geonosians are exterminated by the Empire to keep the project secret. 9 years before the Battle of Yavin, the third sister seeks vengeance on Vader and tries to force Obi-Wan back into the fight. She captures Senator Organa's daughter, not knowing she's really Vader's daughter, to lure Obi-Wan. He manages to save her and learns that Anakin survived and became the Sith Lord behind Vader's mask. A second fight breaks out, Anakin loses once again, Reva leaves the Inquisition and returns to the light side of the Force. Obi-Wan decides to return to Tatooine, where he will protect Luke and his family. Cal Kestis in his second game is one of the last active Jedi in the galaxy. He discovers the world of Tanalorr, which would be an ideal refuge for the underground network The Path, an organization that protects those who are persecuted by the Empire, especially those sensitive to the Force. Within the Empire, the young Thrawn, a tactical genius, rises through the ranks to become Grand Admiral of the Imperial Fleet. He teams up with Morgan Elsbeth, the survivor of the Dathomir massacre, who now possesses immense magical power. 5 years before Yavin, the rebellion grows stronger within Coruscant itself, notably through the antiquarian Luthen Rael and Senator Mon Mothma. The spy Cassian Andor is involved in the theft of millions of credits from the Empire and decides to join the rebellion. On the planet Lothal, Ezra Bridger meets the Jedi Kanan, Hera, Chopper, Sabine the Mandalorian, and Zeb. Kanan discovers that Ezra is Force-sensitive and decides to train him as a Jedi. However, their rebellion attracts the Grand Inquisitor, whom the crew manages to defeat with the help of Ahsoka. She brings the crew into the rebellion, but with the death of his Inquisitor, it is now Vader who hunts them, and that's how he discovers that Ahsoka survived. She, Kanan, and Ezra then travel to the Sith Temple on Malachor. There, they meet Maul, yes, him again, who has taken refuge here after losing control of his syndicate, Crimson Dawn. Ezra finds a holocron there and manages to escape while Ahsoka fights her former master. Maul uses his holocron to lure Ezra to Dathomir, where he learns that Obi-Wan survived the Clone Wars. Kanan and Sabine save Ezra, and Maul leaves the Darksaber behind. Kanan will train Sabine to use it, and she returns to Mandalore to unite her people. Mon Mothma publicly denounces the Emperor and becomes an enemy of the Empire, as well as the face of the rebellion. Maul, meanwhile, goes to Tatooine to confront his old enemy Obi-Wan Kenobi. But once again, he loses. This time, for the very last time, since Obi-Wan eliminates him for good. Grand Admiral Thrawn discovers the Attilan base and forces the rebels to relocate to Yavin 4. On Mandalore, Sabine and Bo-Katan lead a liberation mission against the Imperial occupation. Sabine then gives the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, who becomes the leader of the now free planet. During a final mission before the Battle of Yavin, Kanan sacrifices himself to save his crew. Meanwhile, Ezra discovers in an ancient Jedi temple the world between worlds, which exists outside of time and space. He is able to return to the moment of the duel between Ahsoka and Darth Vader on Malachor, and saves her at the last moment by bringing her into the world between worlds. They stop Darksaber and Sidious from entering this world and return to their own timeline. Ezra then frees his home world but goes missing when he sacrifices himself with Admiral Thrawn by launching himself with a pod of Purrgil to an unknown destination. They reappear years later in the Ahsoka series. Saw Gerrera settles on Jeddah to prevent the Empire from harvesting Kyber crystals for its world-destroying weapon, turning Jeddah into a real war zone. In the film Rogue One, Cassian Andor and Jyn Erso go to the planet to find Saw on behalf of the rebellion. There, they learn that Galen, Jyn's father, created a flaw in the Death Star system, but the superweapon arrives in Jeddah's orbit and carries out its first real test. The Holy City and Saw Gerrera are completely destroyed. The entire Resistance fleet then heads to Scarif on a mission to retrieve the Death Star plans. This is the very first attack of the war that will pit the Empire against the Rebel Alliance. Cassian, Jyn, and their teams give their lives to transmit the plans to Leia Organa, but Vader manages to capture the ship. This is how Star Wars begins. The Fall of the Empire, Episode 4, A New Hope, begins with Leia Organa captured by Vader. We are finally in the year 0 of the Battle of Yavin, the central point of this timeline. She tries to send a distress message to Obi-Wan through two droids, R2-D2 and C-3PO. The droids land in the hands of the farmer Luke Skywalker on Tatooine. Obi-Wan manages to receive this message and reveals to Luke that he was friends with his father. He also gives him Anakin's lightsaber to train in the Jedi arts. After Imperial forces kill his adoptive family, Luke decides to follow Obi-Wan and travel to Alderaan. For this, he asks the smugglers, Han Solo and Chewbacca, promising enough credits in return to pay off their debt to Jabba the Hutt. For her part, Leia refuses to reveal the location of the rebel base. Tarkin then orders the destruction of her home planet, Alderaan. The galaxy now knows the cost of defying the Empire. With Anakin and Alderaan gone, the Millennium Falcon is intercepted by the Empire. Luke, Han, and Chewie manage to rescue Princess Leia, while Obi-Wan confronts Vader one last time. This time, he deliberately loses and becomes one with the Force, just like his master Qui-Gon before him. And Leia manages to deliver the Death Star plans to Yavin 4, the rebel headquarters. But Vader and his secret weapon have followed them. Luke decides to join the rebellion and uses the Force to guide an impossible shot into the Death Star's weak point. This shot hits the reactor and destroys the station. Tarkin is killed, but Vader survives. In the following years, Han and Luke become more and more involved with the Rebel Alliance, which is forced to flee Yavin 4. Many comics revisit this period between Episode 4 and 5. Let's stay focused on the movies and series, or this video will never end. 3 years later, The Empire Strikes Back begins, still considered today as the best Star Wars movie. The Empire discovers the secret base on Hoth and launches a massive attack, forcing the Rebel Alliance to evacuate once again and scatter across the galaxy. Luke is guided to Dagobah by the spirit of Obi-Wan. There he meets the Jedi Master Yoda, who trains him to master the Force. Darth Vader meanwhile asks Boba Fett to capture Han and Leia to lure Luke and convince him to become his apprentice. The two fall in love and ask Han's old friend Lando Calrissian for help in Cloud City. However, Lando is forced by Vader to betray them. Boba Fett then freezes Han in carbonite to send him to Jabba and collect the reward. Luke leaves his training with Yoda to save his friends but is completely defeated by Vader, losing his hand and his lightsaber as well. He then learns that Vader didn't kill his father, but that he is his father, Anakin Skywalker. The Sith tries to convince him to join him to defeat the Emperor, but Luke refuses and manages to escape with Lando and Leia. A comic reveals he'll find his new lightsaber in an old Jedi cache. Another comic tells us that Vader questions his involvement with the dark side after his encounter with Luke. But on Exegol, he discovers Palpatine's true plan and realizes that his master is too powerful. He can't be overthrown. This makes him fall back into the dark side. But in this comic, a failed clone of Palpatine named Dathan manages to escape from Exegol, and you'll see, this is important for what comes next. The following year, Leia and Chewbacca manage to get rid of the bounty hunter Boushh and use his disguise as cover for a rescue mission at Jabba the Hutt's, which turns out to be a complete failure. This is where Episode 6, Return of the Jedi begins. Luke is back with his new lightsaber and saves his friends. Jabba is killed during the rescue, but contrary to what everyone thinks, Boba actually manages to survive. His armor is stolen by the Jawas and he is captured by the Tuskens, who eventually accept him into their tribes. Meanwhile, Luke returns to Dagobah, where Yoda confirms to him that Vader really is his father before passing away. Then the ghost of Obi-Wan appears and tells him that Leia is also his twin sister. Meanwhile, the Rebel Alliance prepares its final attack on the second Death Star, which is under construction in orbit around the forest moon of Endor. Han and Leia lead a ground assault to destroy the shield generator of the space station. Meanwhile, Luke surrenders himself to Vader in an attempt to bring his father back to the light side. The Rebel Alliance then launches its final attack against the Imperial forces. But when Darth Sidious is about to kill Luke, Vader stops him and becomes Anakin Skywalker one last time. The Emperor is dead, the second Death Star destroyed, and Luke escapes on the Millennium Falcon. The Imperial fleet retreats and loses all its power. Anakin Skywalker also manages to become one with the Force and in turn becomes a Force ghost. Leia and Han get married on Endor, and Mon Mothma announces the creation of the New Republic. The New Republic. Everyone celebrates the victory of the Rebel Alliance. However, it seems that the spirit of Darth Sidious manages to travel across the galaxy, all the way to Exegol, where he inhabits an imperfect clone of his body. He then begins the massive construction of a fleet of planet-killer destroyers to one day take back control of the galaxy. I know, his influence still remains among the most loyal officers. He then launches Operation Cinder, a protocol designed to destroy the Empire in the event of the Emperor's death. We learn about its existence in Battlefront 2. Each targeted planet is struck by Category 5 storms meant to destroy absolutely everything. Mandalore is particularly affected when the rest of the Empire decides to bomb everything that remains of Mandalorian culture. Bo-Katan surrenders and offers the Darksaber to Moff Gideon, hoping to spare her people. But the capital is completely destroyed and few survive the Great Purge. The few Mandalorians who survive now live in exile, hidden in clans, following ancient rituals like the Way, which for example requires a Mandalorian to never reveal their face. The Inferno Squad that we follow in Battlefront 2 decides to no longer follow the remnants of the Empire and joins the New Republic to hunt down the last high-ranking officers still loyal to the Empire. Moff Gideon is one of those officers who form a council whose goal is to restore the Empire from the shadows. 1 year after the Battle of Endor, a new battle takes place between the New Republic and the remaining forces of the Empire, the Battle of Jakku. Actually, it's a trap set by Palpatine and his general to wipe out as many forces as possible on both sides. The goal is obviously to eliminate as many rivals as possible who could challenge his authority. As the last forces of the Empire regroup in an unknown region of the galaxy, the Galactic Civil War officially comes to an end. In the following years, Luke trains Leia to become a Jedi. Until the birth of her son Ben Solo, when she decides to focus solely on diplomacy. Mon Mothma gradually demilitarizes the New Republic and advocates a policy of peace and prosperity. On Tatooine, Jabba's death sparked a war between the syndicates to reclaim his territory. The Pikes, expanding their spice empire, kill Boba's tribe, leaving him alone. But he meets Fennec Shand, and together they will recover his equipment and Jabba's territory. This is where the Mandalorian begins, 9 years after the Battle of Yavin. Din Djarin, a Mandalorian bounty hunter, breaks the bounty hunter's code to save one of his bounties, the young Grogu. His client, Moff Gideon, who still possesses the Darksaber, needs this Force-sensitive being to use him in Palpatine's plans. He then pursues them across the galaxy. Morgan Elsbeth, for her part, continues her work on Corvus with the rest of the Imperial fleet. Bo-Katan then receives a distress call and joins Din Djarin to help him recover the Darksaber and unite her people once again. She then sends him to Corvus where they meet Ahsoka. She believes that Thrawn's return is imminent and could threaten the galaxy. Together, they manage to stop Elsbeth to learn more about the Imperial's plans. Ahsoka sees great potential in Grogu. She then sends Din to Tython to look for a Jedi to train him. Moff Gideon follows him to this planet and captures Grogu. Din then leads Bo-Katan, Boba, and Fennec on a rescue mission. A mission that doesn't go very well, but they are saved at the last minute by Luke Skywalker, who sensed Grogu's call. The Darksaber then passes to Din, who defeated Gideon in combat, and Gideon is arrested by the New Republic. But not for long, since he is freed during his transfer by Imperials, allowing his return to the Shadow Council, which is preparing for the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Without Grogu, Din becomes a bounty hunter again, but is excluded from his clan for breaking the oath to never remove his mask. Because yes, Daddy took it off to say goodbye to Grogu, who is now being trained by Luke to become a Jedi. Seeing that Grogu is deeply affected by this separation, he then offers him a choice: continue to be a Jedi or return to the Mandalorian. He chooses Din and finds himself on Tatooine. After helping Boba Fett, the two return to Mandalore to absolve Din's sins. The Mandalorian, once thought insurmountable, is accepted back into his clan. He gives the Darksaber to Bo-Katan and pledges loyalty to her. Together, they lead an attack on Mandalore to take back their planet from the Imperials, killing Moff Gideon once and for all and destroying all of his clones with him. It's the end of their exile. The tribes are once again reunited in the remnants of their capital. In the series Ahsoka, Morgan Elsbeth is freed by a former Jedi named Baylan Skoll and his apprentice Shin Hati. Ahsoka reunites with Sabine Wren, and together they try to stop the Night Sisters from bringing back Grand Admiral Thrawn. Their quest leads them to another galaxy, to a planet called Peridea, the homeland of the Night Sisters. It's also the planet where Thrawn and Ezra have been exiled for nearly 10 years. Thrawn and the witches seem to have mastered the art of necromancy, as he is surrounded by zombie troopers. He, 3 Night Sisters, and Ezra eventually manage to return to the Star Wars galaxy, while Sabine, Ahsoka, Baylan, and Shin end up stranded there. We will get the continuation of this story in Season 2 of Ahsoka. In the same year, yes, everything happens at the same time, Skeleton Crew begins. In this charming story, a group of children from the isolated planet at Aten discover a ship that takes them away from their world. They try everything to get in, but accidentally bring pirates to their planet, a wealthy producer of Imperial credits. The New Republic manages to come and save them, and the shield that isolated the planet is lifted. It's probably truly here, 11 years after the Battle of Yavin, that the Mandalorian and Grogu movie will take place. It will surely be the cinematic bridge before the big crossover in Dave Filoni's next movie, which will show us how the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn will completely fail. Ouch! The problem with doing everything out of order is that we already know how the story ends. Anyway, the rest of the Imperial forces only survive thanks to the mysterious Snoke. He is one of many creations controlled by Palpatine. Born from the Project Necromancer, he makes a place for himself among the remnants of the Empire by insidiously eliminating all the competition until he becomes the only one left to follow. He then brings together what remains of the Empire under the First Order. 15 years after Yavin, Luke starts his own Jedi Academy, taking his nephew Ben as his first apprentice. We learn in a comic that Snoke presents himself to Luke as an ally, but his goal is to secretly corrupt Ben. Do you remember Palpatine's failed clone Dathan? He falls in love with a certain Miromir, and together they have a child, a certain Rey. Ah yes, I'm sorry, that's how it is. Wanting to hide his family from the Sith, Dathan settles them on Jakku, where they become scavengers. Meanwhile, the First Order begins kidnapping children all over the galaxy to train its next troopers, notably a certain Finn. Rey's parents are then found on Jakku. They ask the New Republic for help, announcing that the Sith are back. But unfortunately, no one believes them, and Luke won't be able to find Rey's mother before her assassination, leaving the little girl alone on Jakku. 28 years after Yavin Leia sees her career destroyed when it is revealed that she is the daughter of Darth Vader. She then learns about the existence of the First Order, which the New Republic once again refuses to acknowledge, so she secretly creates the Resistance to protect the galaxy. Luke senses darkness growing in his nephew and threatens him at night with his lightsaber. Bad idea. Ben knocks out his uncle and is overwhelmed by anger and confusion, leading to the accidental destruction of the temple and the deaths of many apprentices. He joins the Knights of Ren as Snoke's apprentice, and after defeating their leader in a duel, becomes their leader himself. Making him one of the faces of the First Order, he now calls himself Kylo Ren. Feeling responsible for Ben's transformation, Luke goes to isolate himself on Ahch-To, the hidden planet of the very first Jedi Temple. Han and Leia separate after that. The Resistance grows stronger as the First Order threatens the New Republic. This is where the Resistance series takes place, which follows the story of a Resistance spy pilot, with a few appearances by Poe Dameron, but honestly, there's nothing worth seeing in this animation. Nothing important anyway. So we begin 34 years after Yavin at the start of Episode 7, The Force Awakens, The First Order. Alright, now we're getting into the trilogy that's the least liked by the public, and at the same time, well, it all starts with Kylo Ren tracking down the pilot Poe Dameron. He has a map that can lead the Resistance to Luke Skywalker. The map needs to be given to his droid to deliver it to the Resistance everyone keeps talking about. Do you have a feeling of déjà vu? Oh yeah, wait. Finn, a stormtrooper sensitive to the Force, frees Poe and escapes with him. They go to a desert planet, Jakku, to retrieve the droid. However, the droid has crossed paths with an orphan, Rey, who is also sensitive to the Force. What a coincidence! No, come on, I'll stop this video. Everything was going well until now, let's keep going. Rey meets Finn, and as I said, they decide to take the map to the Resistance by stealing the Millennium Falcon. They are stopped on their way by our old friends Chewie and Han Solo, who are determined to get their ship back. Together, they travel to Takodana to see Maz Kanata, who recognizes in Rey a sensitivity to the Force. I'm repeating myself a lot, aren't I? She then offers her the lost lightsaber that previously belonged to Anakin, then to Luke Skywalker. Fearing that the Resistance might find Luke, the First Order activates its superweapon. A planet killer, and in an instant they manage to destroy all the nerve centers of the New Republic, from the Senate to their fleet. Kylo Ren captures Rey and discovers she has seen the map to his uncle. Han, Chewie, and Finn then launch a mission to Starkiller and force Captain Phasma to lower the shield protecting the planet. Yes, the Resistance then attacks the First Order under the leadership of Poe Dameron. After being interrogated by Kylo, Rey now understands her powers better, which allows her to free herself and join the others. Leia insists that Han tried to bring their son back to them, but Ben coldly murders his father and faces Rey in a duel, trying to convince her to join him. The scavenger wins the duel. Starkiller is destroyed, but the First Order escapes with the location of the Resistance headquarters. Then Episode 8, The Last Jedi begins. Rey and Chewie manage to find the first Jedi temple where Luke has exiled himself to try to convince him to join the fight. But he brushes them off, declaring that the galaxy is much better off without the interference of the Jedi. Desperate, Rey establishes a mental connection with Kylo Ren, but Luke discovers this and asks her to leave. Meanwhile, the Resistance evacuates its base. And the whole movie is a kind of chase between Leia's fleet and Snoke's ship. The different squadrons scatter throughout the galaxy and have only a few hours to find help from their allies. Rey then goes to Snoke's ship to seek Ben's help. Together they kill Snoke, but Kylo refuses to join the light side. Out of fuel, the Resistance takes refuge on Crate. Kylo lands extremely far away and leads an attack to destroy the Resistance once and for all. But Luke appears on the battlefield. In reality, it's a trick, a projection connected to the Force. A diversion to evacuate the Resistance, this final act uses all the Jedi's remaining energy, and he becomes one with the Force. Him too. The Resistance then gathers on Ryloth, while the First Order regains control of many systems. And her Jedi training with Leia. 2 years later, the very last film in this timeline begins. Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. The worst of all, the gigantic fleet of Star Destroyer cruisers is complete, and Palpatine informs the galaxy that he is not dead. Somehow Palpatine returned. Rey and her friends want to find a way to Exegol. Kylo tries to corrupt Rey by telling her the truth about her parents. She is a Palpatine. Yeah, that's also why they had to retcon everything with that stupid clone story. But anyway, Leia uses her last strength to reach out to her son through the Force. Moved by his mother's death, he's disoriented and Rey stabs him, then heals him with her new healing powers instead of letting him die. This brings him back to the light side of the Force, of course. He then leads Rey and her companions to Exegol, where they face Darth Sidious. An absolutely ridiculous space battle then begins, where all the ships in the galaxy come to fight the Emperor's fleet. Palpatine is killed, but Rey is also mortally wounded. Ben sacrifices himself to heal her, and he too becomes one with the Force. The movie ends with Rey burying Anakin's lightsaber, rejecting the name Palpatine to become Rey Skywalker. Come on, it's a party. Everyone does what they want. It's awesome. Wow. I understand better now why I didn't remember this movie at all. It's terrifying. And the worst part is that what comes next will probably pick up from here with a trilogy centered on Rey. Oh boy. Well, my friends, it's been quite an adventure we've had together, through good times and not so good times. But now, you have the complete timeline of the Star Wars universe in your mind, and you won't be lost when you go see The Mandalorian and Grogu at the movies. If you enjoyed this kind of format, I analyze and theorize about pop culture topics every week, so feel free to subscribe. It's free. And in the meantime, don't forget to stay curious. It's the secret to being happy. Bye.